This is XDefiant. We're here on PlayStation 5. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So this is a free-to-play combination of Ubisoft franchises coming together in a, I guess you would say, objective-focused shooter game. So this used to have the Tom Clancy branding, until eventually they decided to move away from that in order to, I guess you would say, accompany a more larger variety of unique Ubisoft series outside of the tactical shooter brand that the Tom Clancy series is known for. So what are we getting here on the PlayStation 5? Well, we've got two different graphical options. The first, which is what you're seeing right now, is a dynamic 4K resolution at 60 FPS. There's HDR support as well. And yeah, this is a pretty good, clean, well-running version of the game. It looks fantastic. It's smooth. It's got a wide range of different well-crafted, quality, high-fidelity environments that you can enjoy. And yeah, it's a great way to kind of play the game. Now, if you do have support for it, that is a 120 Hz or 120 FPS supporting TV and or screen, you are able to then go to the start, to the settings, and you can turn on the 120 Hz mode, which will have a slight flickering as it kind of sets up on the PlayStation 5, and then you're good to go. There's also an FOV option if you would like to adjust the FOV, with 100 being the default field of view for this particular title. So with the 120 FPS option, you are getting a dynamic 1440p at 120 FPS. It's very smooth. It feels very good to play. It is my recommended option if you do have, again, the screen that supports it. Now keep in mind, YouTube doesn't support 120 FPS at the current point in time, so I can't like showcase it to you, but you can see the difference in the fidelity quality and kind of get an idea of what it looks like. And yeah, I actually can capture it now, thanks to the new Elgato capture card. So that is always really, really quite awesome. And generally appreciated that we're finally getting that kind of technology available, but yeah, still lagging a little bit for the recording it to YouTube, sadly, aspect. So this mode is just very, very fluid. It helps a lot for that quick action-packed combat, and it makes a massive difference to your respawn time, just in regards to, like, you know, when you're getting shot at or when you see somebody. It really can make all the difference in terms of being able to perform and do better than usual. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily helping me a whole lot for this particular match, but you get the idea of what I'm talking about there. So this is a 12-player game in terms of the, you know, the player count. And you know what, I guess technically that could change over time if they ever want to introduce different types of things on top of that. But the general concept here is that it is objective-focused elements. There is Hotshot, which is more of like a Halo's Regicide kind of mode, where it's kind of like kill confirmed from COD to a degree, but you kind of build up a sort of hotness as the top killer and everything like that. And that mode's a little out of the realms of objective, but everything else is very much objective-focused. And I guess you would say past that, objective-focused into two distinct categories. The first is these tighter, medium to small type maps, your more traditional Call of Duty-like competitive levels, and then your larger scale Overwatch-like mission maps. So those ones, which are actually kind of my preference, to be honest. I sort of like those because the levels are really big and there's this sense of team progression. But you're playing things such as Escort, where there's this robot drone that you're trying to push along and get to different check marks, or, well, checkpoints in order to, you know, kind of get the better score to outcompete your opponent. And then there's strongholds where you're taking different ring positions, kind of like territories from Halo, if you're familiar with territories, but territories hasn't really been a thing in that game since, like, the early days, I guess you would say at this point. Or actually, I think the last Halo game that really had regular territories in rotation was, like, Reach, maybe? No, I think, like, Halo 3, actually. kind of dating myself by mentioning that sort of thing, but that's basically what that mode is, I guess, of professional territories. But then your smaller to medium, like what we're playing here, is as like kind of like domination, or sort of another one of those capture, like occupy, sort of grabbing certain positions and stuff. And yeah, that's the general gist of the current game modes. And then there's actually like a plethora of different, I guess you would say, map options in this game. Like actually a really impressive selection of maps that you can enjoy, and a lot of different variety environments that are basically based off of various Ubisoft franchises. A lot of The Division really seems to be there, because it's basically everything that's off their Snowdrop tech, and they can just sort of grab assets and whatnot in order to more quickly, wow, there's a lot of delay on the bullet shots there, just more quickly create these levels. Now, if you did any of the test realms and the test servers, and normally we don't really, I don't like to include beta elements or like test elements in my review discussions, just because they're things that happened before a game came out, but because this game has been in such open kind of active development and or playability in one way or another over a couple of years, it is something to mention that it is very similar to that last test they did. So the maps and everything like that, there's nothing new, but they have said that I think a year's worth of content or something is primed and ready to go. So hopefully we're going to have new maps and locales soon. It's just sort of like if you did play the most recent stuff, it's very similar. Well, that's a nail-biting loss. Let's get to the next map here. Yeah, as I was saying, it really is the same maps and whatnot, which are good levels. Just sort of coming off of that test, I was hoping that there might be, those spider droids are so annoying, that there might be some new levels to play. But if you are coming in here absolutely fresh, having not played any of the tests that they did for, I think, 2 years or something like that, on and off at different periods, I believe you'll actually have a great, healthy selection of content to enjoy in this game. Quite a few large levels, a zoo, an amusement park, this meltdown sort of refinery. And then for medium maps, there's, I believe, several different options. But at the same time, there is an expectation for these types of games to have lots of content and to steadily drip content in the modern era of gaming in order to keep things fresh. I don't make the rules, it's just what they've gotten us all used to. Now, with this, there are some, I guess you would say, bugs that kind of need ironing out. There's snipers that are basically overpowered, kind of like insta-kill things, and some people have disagreements over the, you know, kind of time to kill and some of the movement elements and that. And I have an issue where you throw a grenade and it just falls straight on the ground, right where you're at, and that one's killed me a couple times, because I'm like, what? But it's generally well polished. What I'm commenting on are largely smaller sorts of things that are little elements of the game that don't really detract too much from the overall scope and the offering that they're trying to provide here. Like, it is a pretty well polished package, and it can be quite a lot of fun to play. Like, I think visually it looks pretty good. It's got a variety of different locations that you get to visit: snow, regular warehouses, summer days, just a wide range of different vibes and atmospheres to this one. And I think that helps keep it feel a little bit fresh. But yeah, it's just like I'm so used to these levels and stuff where I am kind of sitting here wanting some more. But compared to other similar free-to-play offerings, it actually is a very impressive selection, which is kind of funny if you think about that. It's just because of that overexposure pre-launch where I'm sitting here being like, I need some more. But that's a good thing too, in the sense that I do desire to explore and play more of this and be exposed to more different maps and locations and that. I think they've got a good amount of game modes. I do ponder if they will continue to evolve what game modes are available. I hope they do stick to the objective focus, as it's nice to have something that's a little bit of a break from what other shooters are doing. And I think they've got a generally strong enough core game here. At the same time, I sit here and I'm like, this is a fairly generic shooter, the video game with Ubisoft franchises slapped on, but everyone I've talked to about it, outside of myself, like, personally, I think this is fun. I think that's a big thing to kind of keep in mind, is I do actually think this is fun to play. I think at times I actually do really well, which is nice to feel as well. And everyone I've talked to, and I don't normally really include the opinions of others and stuff in my own reviews. I like to really do, you know, my own thoughts and stuff on games. But everyone I've sort of dragged into it, where I'm wondering if they've had, or would have a different opinion on the game, everyone has generally, at the end of their experience in trying it, has said it's just fun to play. And I think that's kind of a good thing for a shooter game, is just to be something enjoyable. Like, there's unranked mode, which is, you know, no skill-based matchmaking, which I can't believe is, like, a feature we talk about for a video game, but, you know, it's all relevant for this. And then there is a ranked mode, which does have the skill-based matchmaking, I guess, but that's like a test mode. And so there's a lot at play here. There's a lot going on in this one. And I think it kind of has, like, a lot going for it. And I think that will help this become something that more people check out and jump into. Being free to play, that's kind of the marvel of it, right? You can at least try it out and see if it sort of vibes for you and play as much as you want of it. And it's just, there's no really disadvantage in playing it free to play. You can jump in and just enjoy stuff. Everything is cosmetic and whatnot, and you know, if you want to get skins and everything for your character, just go nuts. But other than that, there's actually quite a lot to unlock and a lot to change. So you get to pick your different characters, and the different factions have different things. I think you've been seeing that for the Splinter Cell crew that I play as. There's the Invis, which is one of the options, and then there's also the element of this sort of Ultra. So your different teams, they have different core abilities. Wow, I'm dying way too much. Oh, I am positive, though. Wow, okay, we're gonna have to go to another match. I guess I joined really late in progress on this one. You really are building up this constant power that you get to unleash with the Splinter Cell crew. They're doing the little goggles where they get to see through walls and everything and do insta-kills. And then the Far Cry folks here, you know, they've got healing options and then a super healing ability. And then the Phantoms, they do sort of blocking things. Every faction brings their own little thing to the table, which is kind of cool and mixes things up. It's a bit of a hero shooter aspect. Well, not really necessarily being a hero shooter, which I sort of appreciate because there are so many hero shooters out. So it's kind of a light, hero shooter light in that context, which I think is actually quite well handled for this particular title, in my opinion. And then past on that, for customization, aside from picking your character and whatnot, you can buy different character skins and that if you're into that sort of thing. Go nuts. There's just to make another little joke, it does feel at times sort of as though it's Gotham City Imposters, if you remember that old gem, where it is almost like these different random characters are cosplaying as these different groups, which is kind of a little funny just for a little context joke there. But no, customization goes further, where you get to do creative classes. So create a class, the time-old traditional thing for shooters from Call of Duty, where you pick a gun, you know, gun skins, you level up the guns, and the guns will allow you to have different attachments and personalizations in order to make your gun a little bit better, a little bit different. And, you know, that's pretty basic, I'd say. It's quite a range of weapons. There seems to be pretty good balancing across the board, outside of the realm of the snipers, again, being incredibly overpowered insta-kills. But outside of that, everything else seems pretty finely tuned and set up. I do have some issues with the bubble shield type things being a little bit hard to deal with during objective placements, but that's the idea of them, right, is to actually interrupt the flow of combat in that way, so I don't really have a problem with that. I do have a problem with all the deaths I'm having. Anyways, but the combat stuff, it all kind of comes together. You know, you get to pick your different characters with the different abilities. You get to have your custom classes, you get to pick different abilities and perks. That's why I'm saying snipers are incredibly overpowered. Free insta-kills this game. Needs to be fixed. And gameplay-wise, you move well, you move fast. There's going to be a lot of different opinions on sort of how the shooting works in the sense of how fast, the time to kill and all that. And I think things are okay. I more am a little bit thrown off at times by the floatiness almost. Like, you don't really necessarily feel perfectly planted in the world. You feel like you're floating around, if that makes sense. It feels supernatural how quick you move in this game at times, which is wild, but it works as a fast, quick, competitive shooter. And I do appreciate that element of it. And I like that there's different abilities, and I like that there's different settings, and well, it doesn't really bear the Tom Clancy name, as it really shouldn't. I do think it feels a little reminiscent of that, as they are trying to provide some level of tactical play. I appreciate that you're doing objectives and not just doing the same mindless shooting that so many shooter games attempt to just sort of put at the forefront of their experience. So it is nice that this one exists as it does, as this other sort of game that you can enjoy shooter-wise. And as I mentioned, you know, it is well polished. It plays well. It comes together nicely. I kind of like what they've done with it. And it's fun. At the end of the day, it's fun. There's a good selection of maps. There's a good selection of content. I, you know, have had a good time playing this one, and I don't really have too many intensive, you know, complaints and everything about it. It works well. It works effectively. I feel as though I can be competitive at it and also just have a more easygoing time at the same time, which is nice. You can feel the pressure of, oh, I gotta put in an effort to kind of get this objective going. And everyone on the other team quit, I guess. I'm assuming they were a party and their leader backed them out, and then that other person was just left by themselves. That's kind of funny. But no, it's a pretty effective game in what it provides, and I think most people will probably have fun playing, and I can't believe that I'm gonna have to play another match because we won. Hard to get your thoughts concise when you keep having map breaks like we've been getting there. I believe we jumped into the beginning of a match and the whole other team bailed out. That's really uncommon for that sort of mode, which is a bit of a shame because I like those long competitive sort of objective pushes. They're actually really well balanced, as is a lot of the play in this game in terms of modes and combat and how everything kind of flows. I thought we would mix it up and show off another game mode and another setup just because we can fit it in for this particular video review and everything like that. I think this game, it's really going to be interesting to see the long term of how well it does, as I do really believe that it is compiled in a pleasing way. You know, aesthetically it hits the mark, gunplay it hits the mark, it moves fast. Some elements people might, you know, sort of debate, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of adjustments and tweaks and whatnot over the course of, you know, this game being out. So that aspect of it is a little hard to control, but they've got something that I think has some element of being compelling to it for people that like shooter games. Now, I really do sit there and ponder this game's longevity, if that makes sense, as I do, again, find to some degree being a little generic, and that's okay, as long as it's fun, right? That's the big thing at the end of the day, is that you can have a decently generic game as long as it's fun. And maybe some people find that it has more character than I find it to be having, I suppose you would say. But it really is going to come down to, I think, how much content we kind of get for this one, and whether or not other people get as into it as I get into it. That's always the thing with these live service games like this, is whether or not the player base keeps with it and finds it to be pleasing and enjoyable. That's always the big hold-up, so we'll have to wait and see long term whether or not this game quite makes it. And I have to say, I am really surprised that this was the live service game that sort of really made it, if that makes sense, as Ubisoft was behind the scenes working on quite a few different live service games for different franchises, and this one surprises me that it actually made it, because XDefiant, I don't even know what that means. Like, what does that even mean as the titling? It is a little confusing, right? It's a little like, huh, what are you talking about? So yeah, I think you might have a good time if you check it out, give it a whirl. It's a decent shooter. It offers a lot of content off the bat, and I think this one has potential going forward, and I'm very curious to see how this one does and if it makes it.